Usually I'm here talking about making things, but today I want to talk about breaking things. We're going to shift the focus from the things that we'd be building and all the things that go into that. And we're going to start with thinking about how we're going to knock them down or destroy them at the end. And that's going to be the fun part. It's a very playful way of thinking. People love to see things knocked down and broken. When we were making the world record tower that was over 51 feet high, making it out of kiva planks, the number one question all day long as we were building it from adults and children was, when are you going to knock it down and how are you going to do it? I guess that's two questions. Although they were fascinated by how large it was, they wanted to know, what is this going to look like when this comes down? A big point of interest was if it was going to fall down before we wanted it to. So destruction is really interesting to people. So it's certainly going to be interesting to your students. So we can harness the power of destroying things for good in this sort of exercise where we're embracing the fact that it is fun to knock things down. One of the basic rules is that you can only knock down things that you build, where you need the permission of the builders before you can knock it down. So that's part of the premise for this activity, that your students will be building things and they'll be earning the right to knock them down. And in this case, we'll be thinking specifically about creative ways that they might knock them down. And just at the beginning of this, you could brainstorm with them some of the different ways that they might consider knocking things down. And they don't have to sort it all out and have a plan before they start, but this might get the gears turning a little bit, because perhaps thinking about how they're going to knock it down in a creative way might affect the sorts of things that the sort of ways that they want to build it. Maybe the whole purpose is to have something as tall as possible, so they just want to be able to build as tall as possible very quickly, or maybe it's a more elaborate sort of idea that they have in mind. Just a few ideas. You don't want to share these with them necessarily because you want them to come up with their own ideas, but these are some of the ways that they might come up with. Number one is just pushing it over. That's the normal way that people knock them down. They may want to pull blocks out from the base and see what happens. You can take a rope and have somebody hold it or attach something and sweep that underneath. And so it's a quick, instant implosion. You can throw things at it to knock it down. Nerf balls work great for that. A poor man's Nerf ball can be old, clean, rolled up socks. You can take a couple of socks and kind of roll them up and they make a ball. And that gives you something that is a reasonable weight to knock things over. With most structures, that will knock some blocks out at least. And it makes it so the things that are flying around are very soft and not going to break or hurt anybody. They can create Rube Goldberg type chain reactions where maybe something happens over here and it releases a ball or something that then rolls towards it and knocks it down, or something swings and knocks it down. So those often take more time to work that out, but that's another idea. You could fly drones to knock it down. You could drive robots or remote control vehicles into it to knock things down. You could roll balls into it. They could build someone inside of the structure and then they knock it down from inside. That's a fun way of doing things. By carefully and strategically removing blocks, it's very interesting sometimes to see how many blocks you can remove before it actually falls, because depending on the structure, oftentimes you can remove a lot, and there's so much redundancy in the support that you can remove a lot, and then eventually it gets more and more fragile and goes. Once you've brainstormed a little bit, allow them the building time according to whatever constraints you have. In this one, in particular, if you're in a classroom, it's nice if you spread people out, because when the destruction comes, you don't necessarily want collateral damage of this one falling, especially if they're tall towers, and then maybe knocking down somebody else's that isn't ready to be knocked down. Once they've built, you can always do the gallery walk and take a quick look around and see what people have built and start to anticipate what destruction might look like with these. As any group of students, I'm assuming that oftentimes people will be working in small groups or with a partner so they can build things quicker, so that you can get to the demolition sooner. And maybe you have them explain what they're going to do or what they think is going to happen when the demolition takes place. So kind of a predictive concept with that. But the important thing with destruction that really adds to the fun is make sure you film this so that you can record it in slow motion, because the destruction happens so fast that you don't you can't appreciate everything that's happening, and it becomes much more interesting and fun to rewatch and see what really happened as some blocks come out, and then however it goes down from there. And you may want, if you have the resources, have it recorded from more than one direction, and so that you can see it coming down this or up close or whatever you want to do with more than one camera. And if you have older students who are capable of it, you may want to also turn this into a video editing exercise where they are filming the destruction of this building. Maybe put that in their minds that they're creating a movie, and this is the miniature set, and cutting back and forth between one camera and the other camera so you can see it from different angles, but it all looks like one motion. So that's an extension of this you could do. Another thing you could do as an extension of this is explore ways that engineers and architects design buildings so that it makes them more durable and more safe for people, particularly during earthquakes or hurricanes or high winds or tornadoes. That there's a lot of things that have been developed, a lot of techniques developed that makes buildings so they don't fall so quickly if there's some major forces going on them. Some of that depends on the materials they use or the way they put the material together, the connectors, or whether the structure is going to flex but not break, and redundant supports, and so many different things that are done. Another fun resource with this would be some videos that have been created of virtual kiva destructions, and these are made with computer-aided design, and they're taking kiva planks as the basic building blocks and building huge structures, sometimes with the equivalent of 50,000 kiva planks. These weren't done by us at Kiva Planks. These are done by other people. And so balls may fly into it or whatever. And usually it's in slow motion, so you can see something hitting it and kiva planks falling out in slow motion and the structure coming down. And it looks very, very real. We are actually using some of the most complex mathematics and calculus available to mankind to predict what is going to happen when an object of this weight and mass hits this structure over here, and what are all the forces acting on that would cause a plank to fly out and fall to the ground, and everything else that happens. So it's really amazing to see what can be done with the computer-aided design. And then if you take that and compare what happens in those virtual destructions and compare that with your slow motion destructions of real life that you do in your classroom, you can see whether you think the computer-aided destruction was realistic, how accurate that was. That should be enough to give you some ideas to make this destruction a fun and playful thing to do in your classroom. And I hope you have a great time. And we would love it if you do some of this, if you would share your videos with us so we can see what happened. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.